In the hyper-analytical world of modern football, we have become obsessed with the concept of consistency. We crown the legends who show up every Saturday at 3 p.m, the metronomes, the 38-game season warriors, the players whose value is measured in spreadsheets and progressive passing percentages. We worship the Neuers, the Alissons, the Courtois because they are the insurance policies of the elite. They provide a predictable, high-level baseline that allows a system to flourish. But there's also a different kind of legend. A specialist. A player who exists in a state of tactical hibernation for 1400 days at a time, only to wake up and become one of the most formidable goalkeepers on the planet the exact moment the World Cup kicks off. For the rest of the world, for most of the decade, he is a journeyman. He is a goalkeeper fighting relegation in the backwaters of Ligue 1, suffering through winless streaks in La Liga, picking the ball out of his net for Salernitana in the Serie A, or in 2026, doing side quests over in Cyprus. He is a man who has conceded more goals in single seasons than some elite keepers do in their entire prime. But for Mexico, for the millions of fans who bleed green, white, and red, he is simply San Memo. He is the man with the supposed 6 fingers, the wall that the world's most clinical strikers cannot crack, and the myth that refuses to stay dead. He is the legendary Guillermo Ochoa. As we sit here in 2026 with the World Cup on the horizon and the Mexican national team in a state of profound transition, the cycle is repeating. The rumors are swirling, the curls are back. The Ochoa paradox is once again the most debated topic in North American football. And so today we are performing a forensic breakdown of the man who literally respawns every 4 years. We're going to look past the memes and the folklore to ask the difficult question: is Guillermo Ochoa actually a world-class talent who is misunderstood by the European elite, or is he the greatest statistical anomaly in the history of the sport? To understand the cult of Memo, we have to travel back to Fortaleza. It's the summer of 2014. Mexico is facing the hosts, Brazil, in a match where they are expected to be a little more than a colourful footnote in Neymar's inevitable coronation. The atmosphere is suffocating. The pressure on the Mexican defense is immense. And for 90 minutes, the world witnessed what can only be described as a glitch in the footballing matrix. Ochoa's performance that day wasn't just good. It was statistically improbable. He made 6 saves, but it was the nature of those saves that birthed the legend. The header from Neymar clawed off the goal line with a reflex speed that defied human biology. It was so impactful that a Photoshop of Ochoa with 6 fingers immediately went viral within minutes. People weren't just admiring him, they were looking for a biological explanation for his brilliance. They couldn't believe a free agent, which he was at the time, could move like that. But let's look at the purest perspective. Why was he so effective? In that 2014 system under Miguel Herrera, Mexico played a high-energy vertical 5-3-2. This system was designed to absorb pressure and hit teams on the break, but it relied heavily on what I call the last line of heroics. Ochoa wasn't asked to build from the back like a Manuel Neuer. He wasn't asked to be a sweeper keeper of any sort who controlled the space behind a high line. He was asked to be a pure, reactive shot stopper. In this equation, Ochoa has a god mode that few in history can match: his lateral explosiveness. His ability to shift his weight across his frame in milliseconds is elite. When you look at the frame by frame of that Neymar save, you see his feet aren't just moving, they are vibrating in anticipation. By the time the final whistle blew on that 0-0 draw, Ochoa was the most searched athlete on the planet. The world thought a new superstar had arrived to challenge the hegemony of the European giants. They were wrong. The superstar was only visiting. This is where the story gets strange and frankly a bit tragic for those who believe in meritocracy. After 2014, everyone expected Ochoa to move to a giant. Real Madrid, PSG, Arsenal, and the likes. The rumors were everywhere, but the move never came. He stayed at Ajaccio, then moved to Malaga, where he spent 2 years sitting on the bench behind Carlos Kameni, and eventually landed at Granada. Why didn't the elite clubs buy the man who stopped Neymar? To answer that, we have to look at the evolution of the modern keeper. We are living in the era of the 11th outfield player. Coaches like Pep Guardiola and Jurgen Klopp to a degree revolutionized this position, demanding keepers also act as the first point of attack. They want distribution, they want cross-claiming, and they want proactive sweeping. And this is where the club level Ochoa struggles. Tactically, Memo is an old school specialist. His distribution stats throughout his European career were often in the bottom 30th percentile of keepers. He isn't comfortable under a high press. He doesn't want to ping 60-yard diagonals into the path of a sprinting winger. He wants to stay on his line. He wants to react. In the 2016-17 season with Granada, Ochoa set a La Liga record. He conceded 82 goals in a single season. Now, the data shows he actually made the most saves in the league that year, but elite clubs don't look at save volume, they look at command of area. Ochoa is 6 foot, which could be relatively short for a modern keeper, and he often struggled to claim crosses in crowded boxes. To the scouts across Europe's elite, he was deemed a bit of a liability in a high-pressing system. He was a relegation king, a keeper who could keep you in a game but couldn't help you dominate one. And so for 4 years, he labored in the shadows, his legend slowly fading from the global consciousness. To the average European fan, he was a one-hit wonder, but the Mexican fans knew better. They knew the calendar was turning. June 17th, 2018, exactly 4 years to the day after the Brazil game. The symmetry is almost eerie. Mexico is in Moscow to face Germany, the defending World Cup champions. In the build-up, the Mexican media had been brutal. The team was being criticized for party scandals, and manager Juan Carlos Osorio was being mocked for his constant rotations. Mexico was supposed to be humiliated. Germany took 25 shots that day, 25. But they forgot about the respawn. They forgot that when Guillermo Ochoa puts on that neon green jersey and sees the FIFA logo on his shoulder, his brain chemistry seems to change. Ochoa made 9 saves, the most by any Mexican goalkeeper in a World Cup match since records began in 1966. The most iconic moment wasn't even a spectacular dive. It was a fingertip touch on a Toni Kroos free kick that tipped the ball onto the crossbar. It was a masterclass. You see, Ochoa doesn't just save the ball, he makes the goal look smaller to the striker. By staying deep on his line, he maximizes his reaction time. He baits world-class players into shooting for the corners, trusting that his twitch muscles are faster than their strike. Against Germany, his command of his 6-yard box was perfect. He wasn't sweeping, and he wasn't passing, he was simply a wall. When the final whistle blew and Mexico had secured a 1-0 victory, it wasn't just an upset, it was a confirmation. The 2014 version of Ochoa hadn't been a fluke. It was a recurring phenomenon. He had successfully respawned. And once again, for 1 month, he was one of the best goalkeepers in the world. By the time the world descended on Qatar in 2022, the narrative around Ochoa had shifted from legend to legacy. He was 37 years old. He had returned to Club America in Mexico, and while he was still performing well, the critics were louder than ever. He's too old, they said. The reflexes have slowed down. He's only in the squad because of his name. Mexico entered that tournament in a dire state under Tata Martino. They lacked creativity, they lacked goals, and they looked like a team that had lost its identity. Their opening game was against Poland, led by Robert Lewandowski, one of the most clinical number 9s of the last decade, a man who had spent his entire career making world-class keepers look like amateurs. When Poland were awarded a penalty in the second half, it felt like the end. Lewandowski stepped up. He has a penalty conversion rate that is nearly flawless. He doesn't miss. But Ochoa didn't just dive, he outsmarted him. He stayed central for a fraction of a second longer than usual, then exploded to his left. He saved it. The stadium erupted, and for a brief moment, the misery of the Martino era was forgotten. It was his 5th World Cup, a feat achieved by only a handful of immortals like Messi, Ronaldo, and Lothar Matthäus. Even in Mexico's worst tournament performance in nearly 40 years, Ochoa was the solitary beam of light. He finished the group stage with some of the highest shot-stopping percentages in the tournament. Even at 37, the World Cup buff was active. The man who couldn't find a top-tier club in Europe was once again outperforming the best keepers who played in them. So let's get into the purest forensics. We have to address the why. How can a player be so consistently elite on the world stage, but so average at the club level? Is it just luck? Is it just a small sample size? I don't think so. The answer lies in defensive compression and tactical intensity. At the club level, especially at teams like Granada or Salernitana, Ochoa was playing behind disorganized, chaotic backlines. These teams are often exposed to high-value chances, one-on-ones, cutbacks from the touchline, and tap-ins. No goalkeeper, regardless of their reflexes, can survive a 90-minute barrage of high XG chances. In these environments, Ochoa's weaknesses, his height and his lack of aerial command, are magnified. If your defense is leaky, your keeper is eventually overwhelmed by sheer volume. But in the World Cup, the tactical landscape completely changes. International football is slower. It is more cagey. Teams like Mexico play with a tournament mentality. They drop deeper. They condense the space between the midfield and the defense. This is what we call a low block. In a low block, the opposition is forced to take low-value shots. Shots from 20 yards out or from tight angles. And this is Ochoa's kingdom. He has some of the best hand-eye coordination in the history of the sport. When you force a striker to shoot from distance, you are playing right into Memo's hands. He is a volume guard. The more shots you take from outside the box, the more he enters a flow state. We are now in 2026. The World Cup is coming home to the Estadio Azteca, to the fields of the United States and the cities of Canada. For Mexico, this is the most important tournament in their history. The pressure to reach the quinto partido, the 5th game, has never been higher. For the last 2 years, the Mexican media has been in a state of civil war. Move on from the old guard, one side screams. Start Luis Malagón, he is the future. He is better with his feet. And for a while, it looked like the legend was finally over. Ochoa moved to Avies in Portugal, then moved to Cyprus, where he currently plies his trade, maintaining a decent level, yet seemingly far away from the national team's plans under the new leadership of Javier Aguirre and the legendary Rafa Marquez. But as we stand here today, the Ochoa curse has struck again. Or maybe it's just destiny at this point. A recent injury to Luis Malagón, ruling him out of contention for this year's World Cup, has inevitably left the door wide open for the goalkeeping icon to return. At 40 years old, Guillermo Ochoa has officially been called back into the squad. He is now on the verge of doing the unthinkable, becoming the first player in history to be named in 6 different World Cup squads. While Messi and Ronaldo are also chasing that same record, Ochoa is doing it as a pure specialist. The question for Javier Aguirre is simple. Do you trust the younger options who are perhaps more suited to the modern sweeper-keeper fundamentals, or do you trust the 40-year-old veteran who has a biological clock that only ticks every 48 months? History tells us that if you put Ochoa in a Mexican jersey in June, he will find a way to stop the unstoppable. He doesn't need to be amongst the best goalkeepers in Europe. He just needs to be the best keeper for a couple of games every 4 years. There is a profound lesson in the career of Guillermo Ochoa. Football has become a sport of spreadsheets. We judge players by their post-shot expected goals minus goals allowed, We try to turn the beautiful game into a cold math equation, but Guillermo Ochoa is the antidote to the spreadsheet. He is a reminder that football is also about moments. It's about the big game player. It's about being the hero when your country's heart is at a standstill. He may never have won a Champions League. He may have been relegated more times than he's won league titles in Europe. He might not be able to play a 40-yard pass into the winger's path to start a counter-attack. But in the history books of the World Cup, his name is written in the same gold ink as Lev Yashin, Gianluigi Buffon, and Iker Casillas. He is the ultimate glitch, the man who spent 20 years proving that you don't need to be perfect every week if you can be immortal every 4 years. He is the legend who respawns. He is the curls that haunt the dreams of Brazilian and German strikers. He is the wall that refuses to crumble. As we look towards the summer of 2026, don't be surprised if you see that number 13 jersey walking out at the Azteca. Don't be surprised when he makes a save that defies the laws of physics. Because for Memo Ochoa, the World Cup isn't just a tournament. It's the only time he truly feels alive. But what do you think? Is Guillermo Ochoa a genuine all-time legend? Or has he just been the beneficiary of incredible timing? Does he start the opening game of the 2026 World Cup? Or is it finally time for Mexico to turn the page on that illustrious chapter? Let me know in the comments below. I want to hear from the Mexican fans too. Is San Memo still the man for the big occasion? If you enjoyed this deep dive into the most unique career in goalkeeping, make sure to hit that like button. It really helps the algorithm find more football fans just like you. Subscribe for more tactical stories and deep dives into the legends of the beautiful game. And if you want to support the channel even further, feel free to tune in to my daily show, DMAC Daily, giving you the latest breakdown of all things important in the football world. Anyways, guys, thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch you next time.